The city just declared a climate emergency in Brampton recently. Exactly what does that mean, and what is the city going to do to mitigate and combat climate change?
So I'm a big believer that we have a generational obligation when it comes to climate change. And I would say our council very much has a number of individuals who are passionate about the environment. I can tell you one of the reasons this was important to me is when I was in provincial politics, one of my battles was trying to convince the Conservative movement that they had to take climate change seriously. I was the only Conservative leader in the country that supported carbon pricing.
That must have been a tough sell.
It was a tough sell. But I thought of Bill Davis. I thought there's a guy, when he was Premier, he created the Ministry of the Environment that we all have to chip in. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. It shouldn't be Conservatives don't care and Liberals do. That was hogwash, and I wanted to really show that every Canadian, every Ontarian wants to step up. Now I know that in Brampton we're a smaller part of the pie. It's a small in the segment of all of Canada, but we talked about it in council and said, even though we're not the problem, we want to be good examples. We want to set a good standard.
So what are the standards that the city is going to do?
And so by agreeing to be one of the Canadian cities that declared a climate emergency, we agreed on emission reduction goals for the city that would be more aggressive than Canada's national goals. And so what we're looking at is initiatives where when you look at Brampton's emissions, that we're going to help the national position, and we're already starting projects. I'll give you an example. We started an electric bus pilot project, which will be the first of its kind in Canada.
And that was with help from the federal government.
Help with actually, funny, once again, we had a provincial grant for it that got canceled. The federal government replaced that same grant. Right. So anyways, what this grant is, that allows us, so when the bus comes up to the station, to the stop, it charges during that 1 minute it's picking up passengers, and it keeps on going. It never actually has to go and fuel up. It's always charging. So we're also working with some of the Nordic countries on best practices. There's the Nordic consular offices have a working group in Canada, and Brampton is one of the pilots. But we also want to protect our local environment. I put forward a motion to clean up the local water bodies. Councillor Singh put forward a motion on tree planting. We have an aggressive goal on bringing more green to Brampton. We have an aggressive goal when it comes to having usable water bodies. And so big picture, there's less emissions, but on a local level, it's about saying we look at our parks, we look at our water bodies, and we're going to make sure that it's not dirtier for the next generation. One of my great accomplishments that I'm proud of when I was in federal politics up in Simcoe County is we started the Lake Simcoe Cleanup Fund. Didn't get any media attention outside of Simcoe County, but we took a lake that had high phosphorus levels, where marine habitat was dying, where beach days were being canceled because of excessive weed growth. We took that lake from the 2006 water quality levels to 1950. And we did it through a Lake Simcoe Cleanup Fund by reducing the phosphorus inputs into the lake. I look at places like Professor's Lake. I look at our local environmental jewels, and if we say we care about the environment, we also have to clean up our local environment. And so we have a real unity on council, and some people you would not expect to be rabid environmentalists actually are on our council. Look at a guy like Doug Willans. Doug Willans' number one issue is the environment. And sometimes he's quiet on council, but when he gets behind this, I've never seen someone more motivated. Rowena Santos, same thing. She is so focused on the environment. I mentioned Harkirat Singh about the tree planting initiative. He believes, and Councillor Dillon, that if you look at the teachings of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who was the founder of the Sikh faith, that 550 years ago, he talked about protecting the air we breathe, the water we drink, the land that we're on, and they believe it's part of an obligation they have in their faith to clean up the environment. And so there's a real synergy of different members of our council saying we want to put an emphasis on the environment. I have to say, as mayor, I think it's beautiful. I love that I've got a council that is thinking outside the box on how we can make sure Brampton's a good example.
So that's the 50,000 foot. What about down on the ground level, stuff like banning single-use plastics? What about I know the city still uses water bottles. I know that when you have events, if you're using the single-use plastic. Plastics is probably one of the biggest environmental challenges across the world. And if you want to change that, I mean, is that something that you're looking at to ban those single-use plastics in Brampton?
So if you look at the biggest challenges we have for emission growth, it tends to be from the transportation sector, business. There are some residential contributions, but I would say there are other issues related to the environment, and I think you've touched upon one: single-use plastics. We passed a motion as a council, and thank you to Councillor Santos for taking a lead on that, to actually look at banning single-use plastics. So we're looking forward to that report. Staff was directed to get back to council on how that could be implemented, the cost, the challenges, and that's something that not many jurisdictions in North America have actually undertaken, and Brampton is actually.
Well, you could be the first. Yeah. The other thing is, I just recently got back from Spain, and what happened is in some of the cities that I was, 1 day a week, basically, they banned intercity traffic in their downtown core to help, they signed on to that World Climate Initiative, and that was one of the things. Is that something that you would consider as well?
So that's not something that we've looked at this point. In Delhi, they did that for a portion of the vehicles. In London, they had some policies. We don't have a similar problem of an overabundance of traffic going into our downtown. We're looking at
not the downtown, but an area. I mean,
Yeah. I wish that was a problem we had, but we are looking at other things. We passed a motion to make major new investments in active transportation. We're looking at ways to say it's not all about the car, because, like I said, I think it's a huge percentage of the emission
I think it's 50%.
are from the transportation sector. And so what we're doing right now is we took last year's surplus and put it into building new running trails, biking trails. And I believe if you create a trail network that is safe, that is beautiful, people will use it. But if you have a trail network that is beat up, that is not updated, that is not easy to follow, then people won't use it. I think active transportation is a great alternative for residents, but you need to give them quality active transportation. So we're working on that right now.
So the other thing, you just signed a global covenant for mayors for climate and energy. I quote here from their website: municipalities are on the front lines of climate change, and through this pilot project, which includes technical support, training, exclusive networking opportunities, and access to tools and resources, each municipality will advance their ambitious climate action objectives. So what exactly is Brampton's climate action objectives?
So as I said before, I think our objective is we want to see emission reductions that are beyond the national obligations here in Brampton. But what this caucus is really about is it's sharing of ideas. There's no monopoly on a good idea. Just yesterday from this caucus came an initiative that Councillor Williams will be putting forward at Council, is to say, if you've got dozens of different municipalities that care about the environment and you're trying new things, well, we can share what works and what doesn't work. And also when it comes to pressuring the provincial and federal governments to be good stewards and partners for municipalities, that we can do it collectively. There's strength in numbers.
So I know the Brampton, actually, a lot of people don't know, has more parks per capita than any other city. You talked about the intertrail city, intertrail connectivity between parks and mobility with bikes and so on and so forth. I mean, that's a great idea. Is that something that's going to be implemented very soon, a year, 2 years? I mean, what kind of timeline are you looking at?
We have a fast timeline, and so I think you're looking in a short period. You referenced a year to two. I would be disappointed if we didn't see real evidence of that within a year or two.
All right, here's a JT question for you. What have you done in your personal life to cut back single-use plastics?
Well, so my wife used to regularly, she's much more healthy than I am, and so she'd regularly have water around. I had a problem, probably drinking too much Diet Coke. So I have to admit, she was the plastic water drinker in our family, and she actually said when they had all this discussion on it, she's like, you know what, she's like, I have to give this up. And so she got a special bottle that she reuses now, and we try to cut out single-use plastics within our own family.